The panel, we got Pierre and Tom's coming up here, fantastic. Federica is coming. Wait, did I say that right? Close? Okay. Got Olivier, got Megan, fantastic. Olivier, you know how to run this thing? Do you want to take that? I'm green, so it's good. Okay. There's a microphone there. You need it. Unless you're going to come up here, All right, everyone. We're on to our second session. That was fantastic, and I was just saying to Kate, I really thanked her for allowing me to feel the moment where everybody agrees with what I thought. Not often you get that to happen, but I knew this was going to be fantastic, and she reinforced it by her delivery to all of you. Get a room full of swimming people agreeing with someone that's in my role, so thank you very much. Anyways, you can see the part of the theme of what we're trying to get to. We heard a lot about the athlete well-being from Kate, and we hope we can start to process that in ways that we can. I know it's difficult sometimes when you're at the PSO level and you're working with the NSO level, and we're finding our lane. That's always what my struggle has been, is finding our lane as a PSO working with the NSO, even though we do have a great relationship with Swimming Canada, but sometimes our greater athletes or best athletes get sort of be part of their property, and we need to help them be better, not the athletes so much, but the NSO so much, perhaps, so that they can help the athletes more, and I know that a few of the people on the panel here have definitely experienced that. So the coach well-being, and I felt that what really struck me when I did hear Kate back in June was how, we're not far away from really focusing with coach-athlete or coach well-being, because we always talk about the coach-athlete tandem and how important that is. And so I thought we need to focus in on that. And I think part of what got me going, I'm going through my own issues, and I'm thinking, what if maybe if I taken a bit more of a pause during my coaching career, because we're from a framework that we did everything. And there's the moments where we'd go to a swim meet, be on the road, and then return Sunday night after finals, driving van for 4, 5, 6 hours, which is absolutely ridiculous, which is so dangerous. But we would do that, and then we'd try and be back in time to do a morning practice because there was athletes that weren't with us. How ridiculous is that? It's absolutely insane. No corporate sector would allow their employees to do that. But for some reason in sport, and perhaps maybe more so in swimming, we have that going. And the unfortunate part, most are you in the room here are coaches. Your employer should be in the room. Unfortunately, we've misguided our schedule, where they're trying to work on some aspects that are very important to their organization or to the volunteer base and their officials piece. But we need to be wiser. We need to work towards advocating for you as coaches to your employer, because the employers need to be better, because they have a huge responsibility to the employee. And I'm really pleased to be able to bring together a panel with different perspectives, but very similar to what we're talking about. And actually we have some that actually are putting things into application. And that's what we need. And that's been part of what I've been saying yesterday when I started with my farmer story. Not Tom's farmer story of maybe, but definitely the farmer story about how important it is to share and work together and collaborate, because everybody can be successful and win if we work towards that. And as I sit and I write down things, and as I said before, sometimes the staff does pay attention to what I'm doing, and they're going, oh, here we go. There's going to be more things to think about. And even yesterday, walking in the hallway, because we had a number of the Swim Ontario board members, and they're asking me, is there this and there's this? How can we support our clubs and their coaches? How can we find ways? And it's not just about handing over money, but it's about creating and connecting with networks of people and partnerships, then maybe we can build a stronger foundation for our sport of the drivers who are there day in, day out. Swimmers come and go. The coaches are there day in, day out. And so we need to work towards that. So I'm really pleased to have Frederica Bain with us from the Whitby Swim Club. She's the president. Olivia Renault is the head coach. Tom Johnson, we heard Tom yesterday, and how would I describe Tom? Basically just a leadership bar none, and everything he does, and through my time, definitely a mentor and a friend. Pierre LaFontaine, lifelong coach, lifelong leader, and definitely a friend, and definitely a supporter for the well-being of others. And you saw him yesterday just pick up when I asked him to come on this panel, or this other panel. And then Megan Whitaker from the Milton Marlins. And we talked about, Kate mentioned about, you have one shot, one chance. You can get injured or you become pregnant. Well, in the world of swimming and coaching, we know that women coaches make up the majority of the coaches in our coaching fraternity in Ontario. They do. Some of them are not in leadership roles, but they are in leadership roles around being a family person, creating a family, and being the glue to make sure that family stays together. But also the challenges of trying to make the work piece, the professional piece, thrive. And her club have gone through a process and looked for things. So she brings a unique perspective around that. So I think it's going to be wonderful to listen, to hear, get ideas, and hopefully this idea of, now you've heard something, you've seen their face, you've seen them before on deck, but now you go, boy, they've done some interesting things. I need to learn a bit more about it, bring it back to my club, and then maybe depending on the role or position you were in, that you can actually put that to your employers and be better. And so I'm going to turn it over to Olivier right now, and I think we have a bit of a slideshow. Yep, perfect. Thanks, Olivier.
Okay. Hi. So just to jump on Dean's point, where it'd be great to have a lot of admins in the room right now. I do agree with that. But just to give you a little bit of background, and I'm gonna go to give a bit of an idea of what we've been doing over only 3 years in our club and changing our structure. It all came from actually coaches asking for a change and board members understanding that a change was needed. Because nothing really changed for a couple of years. So we're just going to give you a little bit of background. We're not where we want to be yet. It takes time, but it's doable. And when you work with your board and you explain why you want to change, usually they will do their best to make it happen. And if they don't do their best to make it happen, maybe it's time to actually look at bringing in new parents on your board of directors. So just to give you a little bit of background of our club, founded in 1999, and back then it was only contractors, no employees at all. I know it's the reality for just a handful of clubs in the province right now. It tends to change, which I strongly encourage you to do if it's your case. And then at some point in 2019, I just questioned why am I a contractor? Why am I not an employee? And I did not really get an answer, because the answer was, it's always been like that. Right? And until you challenge the status quo, it's not going to change, and no one's going to want to work to change something if no one complains. But in my opinion, because I was a contractor, I was not the boss for other coaches. I could design my own schedule, but also all of the other coaches, they should technically be able to design their own schedule, which was not the case. So we had some sort of problem. If CRI would just investigate, we would be kind of screwed. So the board went back, worked hard, decided to do a little bit of change, and it took only about 3-4 months. They seek legal advice. and worked on some employment agreements, and we became employees within about 3 months after I questioned it. So it's doable when you do talk to your board and question, and if you get the "I don't know, we've always been doing it like that," then you can say, "Well, we should change." Period. So that's a bit of the background.
Hi, everybody. I'm Frederica Bain. And I've had the pleasure of working with Olivier for a number of years now on the board in a variety of roles. But, moving on with the background, we were also very fortunate to have on our board someone with significant HR experience. And what she brought to the table in forming these employment agreements has actually changed our club significantly in a direction that I think has made a very positive impact for our coaches. We were not compliant with CRA. I'm sure if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. So if you're an employee, you're an employee. And Revenue Canada, we were not compliant at the time. We moved on with our board in 2019 with Olivier's initiative. He spearheaded it, and our timing, actually the timing was phenomenal, because we all know what happened in 2020, and we were so lucky to have had everything, all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, so that when the pandemic hit and we were all worried, and then they talked about a wage subsidy, it was like a gift from somewhere, and we collectively breathed a sigh of relief so that we could keep our employees. We never laid anybody off. We kept going full tilt right through. So we're very proud of that. Part of our employment agreement, or beyond our employment agreement, was recognizing that Olivier and our other coaches, they needed extras. It covered the standard, the basics. You got your, as you can see on the slide, your vacation leave and whatnot, bereavement leave, mat leave. But we wanted to take it up a level because, part of this overarching theme of coach well-being, mental health well-being, and what our coaches are doing, training our swimmers, keeping them healthy, they needed their own outlet. So part of that was providing a gym membership. It was a kind of a no-brainer, really. We were at TPAS 8 times a week, and it was the perfect outlet, the perfect way to offer some olive branch to the coach to keep them healthy. We also, at our club, we pay for all professional development for our staff. We encourage it. Our staff need to grow. We can't hold them back. And we have actually expanded, bringing our youngest members in. I know this was touched upon yesterday, about bringing young swimmers in, taking them through the NLS program. We will pay for that. We will pay for their Coach 101 to provide some extras. Another important thing, and Olivier is going to touch on this later, and probably your eyes will open and your jaws might drop, or in fact, it might be a completely relatable moment, is mid-season vacation time. Not typical, as you all know, but important. And then it's important to take that time. And so we believe if the coach, we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. If they need time off, they're human. You guys, all of you in the room, you have family members, you have birthdays, weddings, funerals, all kinds of things that you need to attend, and just downtime. And if we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. As long as our coaches, we can cover off, we see that as a valuable contribution to their life, because all of us have that. Sitting on this side of the table, we have that. Coaches should have that too.
So we actually this summer got the first 2 years of the official employment. It was during COVID, so we really never had a normal-ish season. And this summer, we decided to just go back and review, okay, responsibilities, what's in the agreement, does it make sense, do we need to change it for our future employees, do we need to change it for our current employees, and we identified a couple of challenges that I do believe a lot of people in this room encounter on a daily basis. It's hard to achieve full disconnection. We bring home a lot of work. It's easy to see that red bullet next to your mail app on your phone and be like, oh shit, I received an email. And you tap on it because if you have OCD, you just want to get rid of the red bullet like me. But it's just, you want to look at it and maybe it's urgent. It's always like, oh, maybe it's urgent. It's never that urgent. If it's urgent, they're going to call you. Hopefully. So it's hard to do. And even if you say you're gonna do it, you never really do it. So that's a challenge we still have. We don't really have a policy yet, but that's in the plans. I talked with a bunch of coaches this summer, nationals, provincials, Canada Games, and when I asked how are you, the answer was often tired, but good. Right, tired came a lot. We all experience fatigue and mental and physical at some point during the season, which, and you'll see on the next slide, you'll understand maybe a little bit why I did the exercise this summer to actually look at the amount of days off, and I can actually show it right now. That did not. That's not exactly how it should look, but that's all right. And in total, that's actually really not how it should look like. Whatever, I'm not gonna show it then. But in total, over those 8 months, there were about 12 days of non-work. And when I'm saying non-work, it's like really non-work, where I did not have my laptop, my phone, not online meetings still work, a Saturday morning, even if you have your Saturday afternoon, it's still a work day. And that was including my vacation time. So we did the exercise. We understand the value of maybe building it in the schedule of having and forcing coaches to take some time off. So that's some steps that we decided to do this season, and we started it. So we build the schedule. Well, I build the schedule. So all our permanent staff, they can have every other week 2 days in a row of full time off work, not coming at a pool, no meetings, nothing, where they can rest, reset mentally, spend more time with family and friends, and it's doable. It comes with a cost. We pay for extra guards, or we pay some part-time coaches to come and cover. It does come with extra cost, but in the end, we do believe it's an added value for the staff, and just to keep them a little bit healthier, both mentally and physically. We also added some performance objectives that I do know that it's common across the board, but to link it with a certain additional compensation at the end of the year of you did a good job, here's what we need to work on. And that's also something that kind of motivates coaches a bit.
So this brings us to our next steps, and actually Olivia and I were talking a few days ago, and this has been something that's been bouncing around in my head for a while, about health insurance benefits. We often take for granted, those of us who are not coaches, who are not employed in a full-time position with benefits, we take advantage of it. I mean, if you have to go to the dentist in a last-minute moment, it could be $500, it could be $1,000. If you need prescriptions, it's just not there. I know that it was touched upon yesterday in one of the panels, and how can Swim Ontario leverage itself, maybe with Swim Canada and all clubs who don't have benefits, to provide this for our coaches, because they need it. And it's something I will encourage our club to pursue over the next year, and I'd be happy to work with Swim Ontario to make that a reality, because it's long overdue. The other thing we are going to work on is a right to disconnect. I know that applies to organizations, I think 25 employees and more, but really many of our smaller clubs, mid-sized clubs don't have that, but we need to implement that. We need that shut off. And I was really glad to hear Ann Ottenbright talk about that at Pickering. After 8 o'clock, that's it. And I think it just doesn't go for coaches. It should probably go for most people involved in the day-to-day running of the club. And I can't emphasize enough from a board perspective, and this may already be in place in many of your boards, but to seek out those members in your club because they're there. And Karen knows because she was with our club. You can find them. If you press, and you press really hard, you will get those people stepping up, and you'll get the people with the necessary backgrounds to make your board stronger, to support the coaches. We've done it. We've managed to find a phenomenal HR person, our treasurer, et cetera, but please encourage your boards to get that. I mean, it's nice to have other people join in other capacities, but you need those core competencies. And I know Dean talked about actually opening this conference yesterday about the power of community, and that really reminded me of of an example that actually, again, I'll take it back to Olivier. Olivier was responsible for. But back in 2020, when the pandemic hit and all the pools closed and everything ground to a grinding halt, this gentleman on my left took it upon himself to every day send an email to our club, to the entire membership, not just his group that he was training, but to the entire group. And there were words of inspiration followed by, some sort of creative dryland set, a run to Tokyo, other things that we did along the way. And so we took his notes, over 100 days of notes, 100 emails, and we put it into a book, which we gave him at our outdoor cobbled together 2020 banquet in a parking lot that we didn't tell the town we were renting or getting together because we were violating whatever. But we did social distance. But there are many, many amazing things that Olivier had to say in this book. And the reason I bring it forward is because it's about, a lot of this discussion is about coaches' well-being and supporting coaches. And as a board member and as president of the board, it's a philosophy I support and would promote to the ends of the earth. But I just want to give you an example, just one example of what Olivier wrote on day 100. Sorry, you don't know that I have a copy of this book.
No, I don't.
But it's a great book if anybody wants to see it afterwards. But
I wrote it. Add it to my resume.
So, day 100. Hello there. 100 days, our lives changed more than we could have imagined just 10 days earlier. What was normal back then, like going out to a restaurant, shaking hands when meeting new people, or having no direction to respect in the grocery store's aisles, seemed completely unrealistic, now maybe even dangerous. In 100 days, we had to deal with a lot of emotions, fear, anxiety, anger, frustration, disappointment, stress, etc. But eventually, after a few weeks, we adapted and new emotions came in: hope, positivism, gratitude, serenity, confidence, inspiration, altruism, etc. In 100 days, we started accepting what new normal looks like and what athletes do best: adapt. That's one of your favorite words, right? And seek new opportunities. We all love swimming. Having to stop swimming was tough, but athletes are tougher than that. And looking back at it after 100 days, I'm now thinking our sport will benefit from this unwanted pause. And this is where community comes in. In 100 days, we came together and helped our community. We raised money to help feed the need in Durham and help distribute more close to about $9,000 worth of food directly in our community. Thank you, Olivier. In 100 days, we stayed proud of our achievements, our current actions, and our future goals. We are proudly serving our mission as best we can of creating lifelong swimming, temporarily waterless at the time, swimming experiences. That's an example of our coach Olivier, and our board he's been inspirational. He's spearheaded initiatives, and we listen. We have great members on our board that take what Olivier has to say, and we will put it into action because it's a community, and he has given so much to us, as are the other coaches. It's our mandate to give back. So I implore all of you to go to your boards and insist for better. You need better. We can always improve, but you need better.
You know, when you put together a conference and you put, talks together or panels together and everything, you have this intention, a little bit of hope that actually the message will be delivered. And I think you're finding that we're getting there, definitely. And thank you very much. I knew a little bit about that food drive, but that 100-day point is quite remarkable. What we're going to do now is just work around the panel a bit. Each of them have their own unique experiences and thoughts, and their loads and loads of information. One of the things I wrote down from Kate's talk was moments of crisis, how we respond to it and things like that. I think that's a great example of how that is and how great things can come about it. We just can't forget about those great things that came about. And the other thing that, if you caught, that really resonated with me from Kate's talk was the normalizing pauses. And you mentioned that in what you're trying to do. It's so important that we need to strive for that as a collective. And yes, as I said, the board members were out in the hallway. They mentioned, what can we do? We have some very, very well-connected people. It's just the work of trying to get them steered in a certain direction, a certain vision, and a certain importance. And I think we're getting there. We're going to be getting there, and we're going to start to work in a much collaborative way and really push where we can. So we strive to make better. That's what we're going to try and do. So I'm just going to flip right quickly over to Megan. Megan is a mom, 15 months, something like that, head coach at a club not far from here, Milton Marlins, and their club has gone through a unique process to help their coaches who have young ones and how to manage. Day to day is one thing, but it's how can you get away for professional development such as this? How can you get away for those 4-day meets, or let alone some of those meets that are created in the summer that are 8 or 9 days long? How can you do it? Furthermore, we have some international experience here, and how can that be worked on? So, Megan, just describe a little bit of what your club has been doing.
Yeah, is this on? Is this microphone on? Okay. So my board decided to, and they actually did this without me requesting it, because I am notorious for not asking for help in any way, but they wanted to put together some, they're calling it a child care subsidy program, recognizing that a huge part of our job is obviously travel and swim meets and being away at odd hours that don't fall under normal daycare situations, and just finding a way to support that. So my board reached out to various people, and in her HR department and the CSCA, and her sister actually was the chef de mission for the Commonwealth Games, Claire Carver-Diaz, so she reached out to her, who's in artistic swim world, thinking maybe that with a more female coach presence they would have something, and there wasn't really anything that we could find. And so they created from scratch. Unless any of you have something, please tell us. It's a working document, but basically it's a financial support for any swim meet or something like this. That's a requirement of our job. It's not just for me, it's for any of our salaried staff that have children 5 and under, because my assistant head coach also has a 16-month child. And it essentially is set up like a per diem. We get it whether we need it or use it or not. And it's just meant to alleviate some of the financial burden that comes with figuring all this out. It doesn't solve the problem in a way, because I still have to figure out what I'm going to do, but it does take away that financial piece for sure.
Great. We'll come back to some questions. I'm going to jump over to Tom now. And through Tom's talks yesterday, he described his support network, which was his wife and his family and things like that, even though his daughter, secretary, didn't, help him out as much as he needed. But Tom, you had mentioned about, you take care of athletes, but you also mentioned about your long and successful coaching career, talked about trying to describe the value of the coach. And I think Jim mentioned it yesterday. Tom has been very much instrumental to make sure that we have a coaching association, the Canadian Swim Coaches Association. But beyond that, he and his brother really worked to try and professionalize coaching, swim coaching, in many, many ways to get it recognized. So Tom, from your experience and listening to what's going on, what could have maybe been your, if?
Well, definitely, the realities of having 4 kids and having, the financial responsibilities of feeding them and, making sure that they had a life that I wanted them to have. I needed to get my wife to work, right? And part of that was she's a teacher. She never really actually taught school. Because if she taught school, I would coach in the morning, go home if I had time during the day, and then coach in the afternoon, and she'd work all day, and we'd never see each other, right? We'd be like ships passing in the night. So I said to Marion, you need to help me coach, and because otherwise we'll never see each other. So that's what she did, but she actually really wanted to just be a mom. She didn't really want to coach, all that much, but she did, and she worked through it. But what you're describing in terms of a program to sort of help pay for the overhead costs associated with doing that, right? We eventually got to the point where it wasn't worth it, right? And so she stopped coaching. She was also staying up at night worrying about the kids, and I said, well, just stop doing it, but worry about our own kids. So the what if is, if some of these things were in place, or some of the ability to pause, was in place, I think the job satisfaction side of things would have been much better, and probably productivity would be higher, because you're not stressed about those kinds of things, And for instance, I see on your list, Olivier, the idea of like compensation and or recognition of the time that you spend at training camps. And like we go to wherever, when you live above the 49th parallel, I tended to go to Hawaii or Florida or whatever, and you come home and you sit at a board table and they say, must be nice to be on vacation for 2 weeks. I said, not really looking after your kid, So it's just that lack of recognition for what's really involved. And so to take on some of these things are real, but I also couldn't make enough money coaching swimming to to be in the employee-employer relationship situation, because clubs didn't have the resources or didn't think that way. So I have been and always was a contractor from 1977 onwards. But I was in a role where the other people in the club, to comply with Revenue Canada, were employees of the club, right? And so I had the ability to set my schedule and everything else. The other people, I set their schedules. So it was a little bit different. But, even in my tenure with Swimming Canada, I stayed as a contractor because I had pension plans and, RSPs and all these different things set up. And then to suddenly go across and start to be an employee would change all of those things, right? And UBC, I'm working for UBC, and they're saying, we want to put you on contract. I said, I'm the first guy to do that, right? Because a lot of the other side of that is you get to be an employee and then you can't get rid of the employee, right, if they're not performing. And my boss in UBC, he fired more coaches than you can imagine, but he never fired me. But anyway, the point was that those are the what ifs, you know. So.
Thanks, Tom. Pierre, I know you have a trunk full of experiences and things like that, but Pierre, across your whole coaching experience around the world, you've been in clubs and in organizations, North America and Australia. You've been with other NSO leadership pieces. What can you tell us of some key things that, one, you wish you could have implemented or you didn't, the things that you did implement? Because we know that you are a fitness guru of sorts, or at least a proponent of that, and we'll get to that. But what about in the organizational world?
Thanks for the chance to be here. Let me get a couple of things here. I had a chance to work with Olivier at Gatineau for a year, and he is an artist of the sport. And I would always look over my shoulders and see the things he would create for the athletes to be, whether it was a Halloween or Pirate Day, World Pirate Day, or whatever. It was, I kept looking over my shoulders thinking, man, I want my kid to swim for him. Because it was always inspiring, imaginative, and I'd never told you this, but you inspired me, so thanks, buddy. And just to talk to you, but Tom was the first guy to hire me. I told him the other day, but we were at a party at his house. I was just a lifeguard and swimming instructors, and he said, hey, I'm riding my bike back home, and he says, hey, Pierre, come here for a minute. So I go back up to his door, and he goes, you want to coach for us? And I go like, I don't know, I've never coached. I remember in 1976, there was no NCCP, there was nothing. And so I ended up being a 10 and under coach, 1976, so 46 years ago. Stupid you. But, it's incredible when your life as a coach is about changing the world 1% at a time. The things you could do is incredible, and decisions you make every day is incredible. So to both of you and everybody else that kind of touches our lives as coaches, if you stay open in your mind, anything's possible. We did have, the last time we had a conference at Whistler for CSCA, we did have a grant program that we got from the BC government for babysitting for parents that had kids that would want to come to the clinic. I think we had 2 coaches actually use it, but I'm sure there is opportunities like this in events like this that we could look at. But to me, just a few things that I had just heard the last few days was taking pride in the sports system. You're in charge of your sports. You are Swimming Canada. You are Swimming Ontario. And I think you said that as Ontario goes, Canada goes. And sometimes we have to stop looking over our shoulders to see what somebody else is doing and really kind of get up in the morning with running shoes, excited to change the world. Because you have a kid in that pool that's what they want. They need inspiring coaches. They don't need somebody who comes to work. And you are the reason kids want to stay in sports. You are the reasons that kids want to become world people. And when Kate said that, I went like, taking pride in the sports system is not just about bitching about Swimming Canada, but about getting involved in the different solution system as Swimming Canada, where you're on committees and so on and so forth. She also mentioned our best selves. And I think that's really important, like you're there for 2 hours, an hour, 3 hours on the pool deck. These kids sometime, and I don't want to generalize, but I got 2 boys and 2 girls, and my 2 boys, their exit for the craziness in school was sport. And if the coach was an idiot, there was no place for them to hide because they weren't good at school. They weren't always being pounded on by the coaches, and there was no safety net for them. So we are the safety net for these kids. Quick example. when I was in Phoenix, I had a guy called Cleet Keller. The guy Cleet Keller is the swimmer that got caught on January 6th in the Capitol because he's 6'8" and he was walking around with this U.S. Olympic jacket in the Capitol. What a way to hide. But, and he got caught. But he was one of those where he was terrible at school, and it took me the longest. I was hard on him because he was just disturbing all the time, until I started realizing that he was just getting pounded on at school. His mom was really hard on him. His dad wasn't around. I'd be there and I'd be pounding on him, and I kind of went like, no. I've got to be his heaven here. And my whole coaching changed because of this thing. So, and the other thing that I think at Swimming Canada we did really well was, and Kate brought it up, retiring with class. If you're the younger people that haven't seen that, but we would bring the coaches of the retiring athletes. The whole point for doing this, some of you guys might know this, but Morgan Naby was never wanting to retire because he had karting, and he would just swim fast enough to get karting, but he was never progressing, and I had to try to find a way to get him to retire. And so I told him, I said, listen, we're going to bring your coach and your parents, and we do a good thing. And he was really excited about announcing his retirement. And we started doing this thing for years, because I think as an organization, you gotta take care of your people with class, including the coaches. And so for me, in terms of organization and what Tom did with George Gate and Company, building a CSCA was really important. But more than that, you as a coach need to make sure that you don't wait for SNC or Swim Ontario to change your world. That you are the club. You are the brand of the club. People look at you for direction. They don't look at, nothing personal to the chair of the board, but they don't see the chair of the board in the pool deck going crazy up and down, running up and down, cheering, what's the word? Heat winner! But you are the brand of the sport, the brand of your club, and you need to make sure that your first negotiation with the club are well planned, that you have people that help you do this, that you know your per diem, and I think it's what you're doing should be a role model in Whitby for all the other clubs in the country. I think we need to pass that on. So I work with Cycling Canada, I worked with Cross Country Ski Canada, I work with swimming, and all three of them, I think what we try to do is make the coaches the pillar of the program, and try to slowly work in the relationship with the board to educate the board about the power of the coaches. And for all of you, you get hired because of your qualities, and you get fired because you're not good at certain things. And so you as a coach need to make sure, I can't change you as the Swim Ontario CEO or Swimming Canada. I can't protect you from what you're not good at. So you got to make sure that within your coaching, you know your strength, your weakness, surround yourself with good people, work with your board to make sure that if you don't understand budget, somebody on the board can, and get them to educate you. If you can't write a newsletter, get somebody else to help you. But, build on your strength and get help for your weakness. That's why on the Olympic team in hockey, you get picked as a left winger, and they don't always yell at you because you're not a good defenseman. You got to be the best left winger there is in the world. And that's how you win the gold. So, to me, I think we've had a lot of discussion the last 24 hours. Dean's presentation earlier, Tom, and even Kate this morning. At the end, if you wait for the national organization or you wait for the provincial organization to do it for you, you're missing the boat. It starts from you up, and from Olivier going to his board saying, listen, this is not good enough. We got to change. And you are the pillar, but you got to work with your president. And, that's the team that needs to work. Otherwise, you're going to be there for a couple of years, get frustrated, and look for something else. And if you don't have some of those pillars, you'll be 45 and your spouse will say, you don't have a retirement plan? You don't have a medical plan? Your per diem is 33 cents a kilometer where the government's 63. You're giving you $30 a day for per diem and so on and so forth. And then your spouse will say, you know what, we got to prepare for retirement in 20 years, and you look for something else. And often the first 20 years is when you build your capacity to become a great coach. And these platforms need to be established so that you could get excited about the next step and not, to Tom, I got to have enough money to pay for my kids. And when they get to be teenagers, you need a lot of money for the boats and the bikes and so anyway, that's my little,
Thanks, Pierre, and you made some great points there. I think that for consideration and at this moment, I think the panelists did quite well. I'm going to open it up to questions. Before I do that, when Pierre referred to Olympic hockey, he didn't bring up the Habs. I'm not sure if there's a bit of a gap there, but I'm sure Pierre will have something to say at another time. We have on the wings over here, Kate, and I'm going to leave it in you to frame something around our discussion so far. What you, some key learnings or key messaging around the framing, how we can help our coaches, help our clubs. So I'm going to let you think about that, and then I'll bring you up, and then I know you're going to have some great nuggets of information. Now I'm going to just open it up. I think we only have one microphone because we had to save money so that you would have those yummy chips and granola bars. So we would have had, and Stu, do you have your running shoes on? You'll just have to really work at speaking loudly. But any questions so far? Yes, Stu.
I actually have a question for Megan. Megan, I probably this compensation for the child care is probably step one in your mind anyway. What do you see as sort of the next steps? Those of us who have been on deck with you have seen you with your child, and you go, that's not obviously the ideal scenario. So what do you see as sort of the building blocks of this plan?
That's a great question. I don't really know, but to be honest, I would love to sit down and chat with. I know a lot of you have had children and have gone through this before. The reality is, he can't be on deck either. So the financial piece is nice, and it is, like you said, step one. But I don't know what's next to support, because ultimately I want to keep being a head coach, and I want to keep going to nationals, even if it's going to be a 7-day meet. But those obviously have challenges, so open to discussions.
That honesty, that's awesome. Another question, yes, Ken.
One of the best things I saw on the slides in the presentation from the Whitby folks, thank you, was selecting board members that have particular backgrounds in the portfolios that can really help you. I'm a coach that's been around for a number of years. I took a mental health policy in 2004. Back on deck now about 8 years, I guess. And for me, one of the big challenges around this whole piece is wanting to focus on coaching. And the challenge in a smaller club is we're going to focus on our own mental health. You take on all these things, also trying to be an advocate for changing the scenario for coaches with our clubs. Is that something that the PSO can provide more leadership in, or do a lot more, maybe support us? I know for me, the coaching, it's a huge piece by itself, right? So when you start getting into all these things, there's a lot of stuff we're looking at there. Is there other resources that can help us with that?
I guess that question's for me. And I'm thinking and going, okay, first thing that comes to mind, you're absolutely right. There's definitely a need. There's definitely a struggle there, and we have a responsibility. We do have a responsibility. Now, how to go about that, I'm not sure, because we have our own capacity challenges and moments in time that is just crazy. So I think it's one of those things that will rattle around in my head. I have a board of directors. We have two new board positions on now there. We need some help in and around that. We need to partner and collaborate. So that's my answer for right now. Need a bit more. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah.
Because I feel like if we're all doing this with our own individual board, it's kind of like, making your schedule for your program. You do that individually, but everybody's out there working on health plan. Everybody's out there working on training, health for kids here, that kind of thing. It seems like something we want to be able to bring to everybody.
Yeah.
Not have 60 coaches, 100 coaches working on that. Trying to coaches.
Yeah.
I know through the pandemic, we all managed a huge portfolio of things. Looking at this, some amazing things with this club. Everybody did different things to keep their clubs thriving. And everybody got tired. And now the challenge is having to get back to coaching and helping. And I think it's a great topic that we're in. It's great that we're talking. But it is a huge challenge. Because we all want to coach. Not necessarily manage all the other issues that we've been managing for 2 years around the pandemic.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, and hopefully I've conveyed it well, we do have an idea that we need to understand what is going on in the clubs better than what we are. We, from our process that we have in place, we know more about the new clubs that come into play because we ask way more of them. They have to show us way more. But once they, gone through the year of trial, then they become full-fledged club, and then we really don't touch base with them until there's a problem. And that gets back to my whole point. Let's get away from the reactive piece. We're going to have some reactive moments, but but we need to be proactive. And what I mean by that is that we need to get more involved, understand the clubs a bit more. And that came back yesterday when I talked about the one pager, whether we call it dry goals, wet goals, whatever, that both the president and head coach would, that comes into the organization's office, and that we look at and we start to work that piece out. We've tried some other mechanisms, such as connecting with the regional chairs and trying to get that going, and we haven't done the three things that are really important to us in this new strategic plan around engage, inspire, and empower. We get some things fairly good, some things are not, but I'm not sure if we've really done the inspiring piece to where we need to be, and definitely the engage or the empowerment piece is a big challenge. And so we take that to note, Ken. It's good. I do have a thought or two after what you just said, or it's been on my mind. But I thought, Kate, are you willing to come up and just share? You've been listening. You have your own experiences. You have coaches. You worked on. You've been part of boards. Just a few thoughts, parting thoughts on this particular subject. Just what you've been listening, sort of go forward.
No pressure.
No,
it's all right.
I did the peer, and it worked well yesterday. And there we go.
Okay, I've got something to live up to then. First of all, thank you all. I really got a lot out of that as well. And I think, like I said earlier, it's interesting now that I'm transitioning into my own coaching role, because I had done some coaching already, sort of with community groups, but now that I'm coaching in a more sort of official capacity, I think it just really does strike me that I really didn't, I think so much of the well-being piece wasn't apparent to me, and I don't know if that's because my coaches were so good, but I'm afraid to use that language as well, because that means that they were probably masking a lot of the things that were affecting them negatively, so that they wouldn't affect us. And so I think that, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. I was having a conversation with someone earlier about how we can sort of best turn up for our athletes that way and provide spaces for them to be able to ask for mental health support, for instance, or express when they're going through a hard time. And I think that, like I said in my talk, like modeling that and not always being the stoic person who like nothing affects you, and creating those spaces for athletes and saying, oh, I can really relate to that. I'm having a hard time with that too, or that was something that happened in my athletic career. Is a really good place to start. But I'm just so much more aware now as I'm a coach how similar the challenges were as an athlete, and how similar those are to being a coach as well. And I appreciate that I'm starting to see coaches share that more with their athletes too. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much.
So Dean,
Yeah.
just Ken, excuse me, Ken, to answer your question and not answer it, but I think Ontario and what Dean's doing is actually a really great first step in this, and also having the Whitby guys and yourself at the end of the table speak to what you are doing. You can put together over time a template that gives direction to organizations and clubs on how to go about this, so that it doesn't become a situation of reinventing the wheel every time you get a new club. But these are the standard operating procedures and policies that, as an organization in our NSO, you need to have in place in order to maximize the productivity of your program and your coaches, and the overall well-being of everybody in the program. And I think the CSCA, and you asked me to speak to that earlier, that's always been an objective. And there's limitations, and people will say, what does the CSCA do for me? And basically, they run the conference, and they basically provide you with a license to practice, right? And there is regulation and certification, and there's two sides to this equation. And so part of it was developing the certification program that many countries in the world copied, but then there's also the regulatory piece that Dave was very much involved in with Denny Kader and all these guys on regulation of coaches around the time of Sheldon Kennedy and all that sort of stuff that went on in Hockey Canada continues to go on. Anyway, those things are things that maybe you don't realize now as a professional in the field that weren't there. Right? And we had to work to put them in place, and they are in place, but they are still in their infancy in the sense of how long this organization has been in place and what still needs to be done. And one of these things is this aspect of coaching well-being and overall productivity. And you think about Google and some of these different organizations that are on the leading edge of, the corporate world in terms of how they treat their employees and how they continue to have productivity. It's because they create the environment where great things can happen. And I talked about it yesterday in terms of fairness and, camaraderie and, treating people with respect. So I think it's a step, and I think that you guys are ahead of a lot of places, but it's in the conversation, which is huge, because before, to Kate's point, it was just you stoically put your head down, don't say anything, because if you're on show and you got to come in and you got 2 hours to deliver your message, and then you go home and lick your wounds and see if you can come back and be ready the next day. And lots of coaches don't make it because they haven't got a support network to be able to keep going when things get really, really hard, right? And they do get really, really hard for everybody, for coaches, athletes, administrators, everybody. Right, so.
Thanks, Kate. We mentioned about basically being tired, and I've said it for a long, long time when I was a coach. One thing I was really good at is making the athletes tired, and I think some of you will share that, I'm sure of it. But one of the things too is that we're really good at making ourselves tired, and I think some of the things have been revealed on that. And some of the remedies or solutions that we're going to have to face is looking at a competitive calendar. Right now we are been working on looking at competitive calendars that overloaded, meaning just our provincial properties, trying to match up with the national program and seeing what that does. And we've witnessed this resurgence because we're in this hibernation. We saw that come this past April, we offered, we had some provincial properties to be offered. It was exciting. Everybody was exciting. People started to get some swim meets, but you were all tired. There was the big impact. Your swimmers and yourselves were tired, and I got to believe the officials were tired. Then we ramp up coming May, and the number of sanctioned meets that took place was incredible, because we got to race. We got to race. We got to race, and we have to chase standards, and those are all very important things. But we need to be able to manage that and temper it. And then by the time the summer comes along, when we ought to be our best, coaching, swimming, we're tired. We've made them tired, and we're indicative of that. And we need to think about that. So, sometimes coming out of the box and doing something that's just unbelievable outside of what has been the norm is going to be hard to accept. But we are looking at things like that because when we look at it, we're thinking of the best interest and the well-being of the athlete for long-term development. Right, career management. I like to refer to it better than long-term development, and looking also at the well-being of the coach who's there day in, day out, year after year, and is the foundation to our success. And so, you got to be prepared for that. Some of the changes that might take place is based on some of these other tangibles that don't fit what has been normal. Because what was normal is maybe not as good as it should be or could be, and definitely has its things. So when I talk about being tired, I'm just going to go across the table here, thinking about that. So Megan, how best can you manage your tiredness?
Do I need Well, I have a 16-month-old, so I'm very tired all the time. But now he's in daycare, so I can nap midday for the first time.
Okay.
And I have done that this week. So.
All right. Perfect. Okay, Pierre, the fitness guru.
Yeah.
The pressure of running up a hill and making it a competition for everybody else that's been on your staffs. How do you manage your tiredness, but how do you manage your well-being, fitness well-being, and just duty of care?
So I'm expecting everybody at 4 o'clock for a run before the banquet tonight. Olivier and I are going to lead. He'll be first, and I'll be in the back just to help and push people forward. The fitness part of my days is because it's the only place that nobody could get to me. And it's my only little world. Everything else belongs to everybody else. And so whether it's my kids or, a partner or the dog and so, it's not. I go to church on Sundays. I love going to church on Sundays because it's one place for an hour and a half that nobody bothers me. I'm not sure it's got very much to do with God, but very much to do where I could ponder on my week, whether it's work week, partner week, how my kids' week, how it could be better the next week, and so I think to me that's how I do it. I try not to say that I'm tired because nobody cares. and I, it's not so much that I just got to keep going, but sometimes you just got to keep going. And so, and it's not try to be Superman. I just think that's how I handle it. I just get up and go and put a smile on.
All right. Tom, you talked about going for a walk with Marion and things like that, and where you were silenced for a while, and she would then stop and say, "Okay,
What's up?
What's up?
What's going on?
How did it go?" And everything else. But same thing, Tom. You traveled a lot. You ran camps, everything like that. But how did you take any things that was a bit of a routine, or how did you take care of yourself in a physical and mental way?
So, partly what has already been said. I always found that I was way better if I could even put my head down for 15 minutes sometime before I went back to the pool, especially when you're getting up at like 10 to 5 or 4:20 or whatever I was doing. The second thing is carving time out of the day for myself, right? Whether it's going for a walk or run or just working in the garage doing something that isn't swimming related. And then the other piece that maybe really helped me a lot was whenever I'm going away for a training camp or a swim meet or something like that, I tried not to do any meetings in the immediate time period right before I left or right after I got back. And everybody wants a piece of you. You're going tomorrow or you're going next, this week, we need to do this and this and this. And I would go, yeah, sure. And if I was leaving on like Thursday, I wouldn't schedule any meetings on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'd try and get done what I needed to get done and then gather myself so that I was able to not go into that situation too tired. And similarly, coming out of it, because you put a lot into those kinds of situations, as soon as you get back, the pile on your desk is like so high that you can't even see the other side of the room. And the natural tendency is to get in and deal with that right away. I usually deal with paying the bills right away, but then after that, I don't do meetings until if I'm back on Sunday, I'll meet you on Wednesday, kind of thing. And by creating those windows in my work week, it didn't mean I didn't go to practice and stuff, but I just alleviated some of the sort of normal stresses to give myself room to gather my thoughts and myself and then be able to move forward. And then the last thing I do to take good care of myself is I go to bed early. I don't stay up very late. If I'm still awake at 9 o'clock when I was coaching, even now 9:45 is late for me, right? But if I was up much past 8:30, like I wasn't very good the next day.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Olivier? Same question.
Same question. Okay.
Your mind is working,
unfortunately, I am a night owl, so I'm not going to be able to go to bed at 9, just like Tom here. So I do take some naps midday for sure. One thing though that I do have hobbies that are really, really far from the swimming and far from the sports world. I restore antique stuff. I go for antique shopping, like everywhere. I can drive 2 hours and just go and not find anything and being pissed a bit about it, but whatever. I was just going on drives or building stuff. I do have a huge Lego collection. So just finding something that for you is not even related, and also people that are not related to the sport. We tend to have our friends related to the swimming world or to the sports world, and being just unwind and go with other people every now and then. That just resets you. So that's my trick.
Okay, great. I will come to you in a little bit because I see you got some closing remarks, which will be great. One of the things that I think as we go through a process to try and make our environment better for ourselves and so on and so forth, but I think you need to understand, you need to have a plan and how you do it. And yesterday I brought up about professional development plan. It was good to hear that the club has the support for that. But beyond that, when you start to give these small pauses, we'll say 2 days a month, as I understand it, what do you do with those 2 days, right? And you need to have an action plan. We talk about action plans. You need to have an action plan regarding that. And the next thing is that who do you lean on? Who can you lean on? Not maybe in family-wise and things like that, and maybe there is, but who do you lean on in a professional sense? We know in corporate Canada, corporate world, there's executive coaches. Who's your executive coach, or coach's coach, you might call it? Or do you have something like that? And can you think of someone? It could be a mentor. We talked about that. But you need to think about who can you lean on. And it may not be anything to do with swimming, but it's a moment in time that you actually can revitalize yourself, re-energize yourself, and give yourself that extra boost to come back and be ready and do what you deserve, or what your athletes deserve. And so you got to be mindful of that. You got to think about that. And some of the young coaches in here, the next generation coaches, be wise. Be smarter than us older ones. Be much smarter. So, that's just a word to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it over to Frederica. You have a couple notes there, I see, and sort of parting remarks. And maybe if there's time, lunchtime's coming, and I bet it'll be great. So I want to make sure that we get there. Also, during this talk, Karen, for some reason, brought out the first aid kit, so I'm not sure if there's some Band-Aids that need to be required. I'm sure she has a pill or two that we can lean on. And actually, because we're amongst adults here, maybe there's a few gummies or a few edibles there. I don't know. God forbid if Darren ever found out about that. But anyways, Frederica, some of your parting thoughts as you were writing, and you come with that club perspective.
Well, it struck me as you were asking everybody about what they do to rest, and I am, prior to being a swim parent, we were an alpine racing family, and so we were one of those families that snuck across to Quebec to go skiing in the pandemic. Sorry. But I have to tell you, why I bring this up is something that Tom mentioned yesterday, and what I hear a lot is when we were there, we got on that first run. We took the lift up. We got on that first run, and it was the first time I wasn't thinking about swimming. I wasn't thinking about the board. I wasn't thinking about the pandemic. I was just doing something completely different. So I would suggest that is a great takeaway, that, Tom restores cars, we ski, Olivier hunts for antiques and does has other creative outlets. I really would encourage everybody to do that, and I would encourage the boards to, again, another reason why you should have those 2 days or that downtime in between, because we're committed. We have to be committed. We're a family, and we have to support our family. And I think mental health is a great way to start. It's long overdue, and just feeling that feeling of freedom and they come back fresh is second to none. So
Okay. Yeah, Pierre.
I gotta tell you a situation about skiing. No, with this thing. My partner, she's got a tire plate in my house on the Quebec side, and so she'd come over, she'd break the rule. But one day we went up to the Gatineau Park to go cross-country skiing, and people jumped in front of the car to stop us, to tell us to get the hell out of Quebec and go back, because it was illegal. That's how crazy it got to a certain point. It was really...
I think that happened in BC and Alberta. There was a bit of a bun fight going on regarding that. Does anybody on the panel have anything that hasn't been said or that's come up?
The only other thing I would say is that I have this cottage in the interior, and it allows me to get together with my twin brother and his family and our family, and that really helps. And I know that some of the leadership has, denigrated Canadians' propensity to go do cottage time and think that that's, you're almost made to feel guilty about doing this. And this is who we are, right? This is what we do, right? And I think, to Kate's point, normalizing those kinds of things are what makes us who we are and makes us great. And don't stop doing that stuff. You need to carve time out for yourselves, irrespective of what someone else is thinking, because the culture of the sport is a bit stupid, right? It's like any high-performance sport. It requires this commitment that's way beyond the normal. And so, the quiet quitting thing that's going on in the world that we live in today, our kids in the pool quietly quit quite often, right, when they're overtired. We just haven't had a name for it before, except thinking that they're dogging the practice or something like that. But to that point, we still need to be who we are, right, and be true to that.
Great. Well, I think we're at that time, right, Jim? thank you very much. Really appreciate. I've learned a great deal in the last few weeks talking about this, and Olivier and I had longer talks or longer period talks talking about this, and amongst everything else, and really appreciate all of you to be a part of that and sharing your story. Megan, thank you very much for sharing the story, what is going on in your club, and so on and so forth, and the exercise that when you did go, your club did go around the country, or at least in the provincial side of things, to look for something, it wasn't there. So you had to create something. But the whole thing is getting a better understanding that, you know, things do need to be different. We need to strive to be better, find ways to be better, and you have to work at educating everyone. And it takes more than just saying it once. You might have to say it a few times at key points when you're in front of your board or talking to your president. You need to take that moment and you know, educate them on where things are at. And if you're not quite clear, then ask around, because there is some people that do have things quite well in place. So thank you very, very much. I'm going to have Jim come up here. He's going to direct us what's going on. I think it's a 1-hour lunch, but Jim, come on up. Thank you very much, everybody.